blah, blah. Welcome to another episode of Let's Rewatch. Of course, this is the podcast where we get together as a group and we watch some of those movies that we hold very dear from our childhood or from our youth, and we get to see if they're actually still any good. Let's start by introducing our regulars. Of course, I'm Nick.
I'm Ash.
I'm Bret.
I'm Sam.
Am I in this?
And that's Bryce.
And so we're joined by a special guest this time around. If you're a fan of the other Laugh Stash properties, we recently did an episode of Let's Drink with this guy, and we kind of fell into this fantastic conversation about movies that we all loved, and it became very clear very quickly that we wanted him on this show. And we actually really got caught up in, I don't know, at least a 30-minute conversation about one of his very favorite movies. So I'll introduce a movie in a moment. But first, welcome, Hector Navarro.
Thank you so much. It was a 30-minute conversation we were talking about this?
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure it was longer.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No way. It's great.
We loved every minute of it, and I was a little bummed we weren't recording it.
Yeah.
So we've got to recreate the magic.
What was that? Okay, we'll just recreate it. That's fine.
Yeah.
You get me talking about this movie, and I'll probably say the exact same shit in the exact same order. It'll be great.
You were super excited, and we fell in love with you as well.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
So-
the feeling was mutual.
Hopefully you already know Hector from his YouTube video or vlogs. I don't know exactly how you'd say it. But his shows online, The Poole, Omnibus, Superhero News, most, if not all of those are part of the Geek and Sundry network.
Correct.
And if you have not seen these shows, if you have even a mild interest in comic books, you got to check out these shows.
Yeah. Yes, they're great.
Hector is a vault of knowledge of comic book knowledge, and
Yeah.
Nick is our resident comic book knowledge person.
We
so-
speak the same language.
Yeah.
Nick and I.
I've been stewing on Jessica Jones because none of these assholes have watched
Just
Jessica Jones
looking
yet.
at the couch where Nick and Hector are sitting is like watching the fucking Matrix code go down. Like nerd
But it's with
Matrix.
comic strips. Just
Yeah.
Comic Matrix.
One's wearing a Comic-Con shirt, the other one's wearing a Star Wars shirt.
Oh, boy.
They
That's
both
true.
have glasses.
Nerds. So we're gonna watch a movie today that is very, very close to Hector's heart. He's brought this to us. From what I understand, it's a pretty goofy movie. The name of this movie is A Goofy Movie.
That's right.
And this is an interesting one for me. Hector's bringing it to the table. He's brought it to us to see. I think all of you have seen it except for me because once again, I'm a little aged out of this movie.
I don't think Bryce has seen it. Have you seen it, Bryce?
I have not.
Ooh, interesting. Great. I was going to say you are old as fuck, but now that counters that. So
Bryce
it's just you just
crossed
missed
that
it.
30 line.
You're fine.
One of us.
It's fine because this film came out in 1995. Theatrically released in 95. So it is the 20th anniversary of a Goofy movie this year, 2015.
Wow.
And they even had a 20th anniversary reunion panel, I think, this year at D23 or something with the cast, with some of the musicians that did some of the songs. Like I think the director, recorded a video in and sent it in, and some other people were on there. But it's pretty awesome. I was bummed that I wasn't at that, but fans seem to really dug it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe it's been 20 years.
Yep.
Jeez.
1995. Same as Batman Forever. 20 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is pretty short too. This is like 78 minutes or something. Like it's not that long.
Yeah.
And in part, I mean, it feels like it is like a series finale for the show Goof Troop. It was worked on by like Toon Disney Studios, but I looked it up and I don't know if it was intended to be a direct-to-video from the onset. I don't think it was. I think it was intended to be released theatrically, but it's not considered one of Walt Disney's, Walt Disney Animation Studios films. Like it's not part of that legacy.
Disney Toons
it's Disney
Studios,
Toons.
and it's the second one.
Yeah.
DuckTales was the first. Then
Awesome.
This.
There are moments in this that are super cinematic.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I think there are still moments that are TV, but it's not a Goof Troop movie because there are characters that were on the show Goof Troop that are not even in this movie. We don't see Pete's wife. We don't see his daughter, Pete, like the neighbor. We don't see that side of his family. It's just Pete and his son PJ. So the movie is really about Goofy and Max, and they're older than they were in the show. In the show, Max and PJ were in middle school, and this they're in high school. So it's like a couple years later. and then the direct-to-video sequel to this, an extremely goofy movie, which is very bad, is about Max in his freshman year of college. So the reason I'm sorry, I keep talking. I'm sorry.
This is what people are here for.
The reason I love this movie so much is because I believe that it is a really rare example of a classic cartoon character who's like a mascot for a company, even like a corporate character, Goofy. And it's a rare example of a character allowed to evolve and have some emotional depth. Now, it might not be the most sophisticated emotion, but like for, again, 1995, he's friends with Mickey, who hasn't even proposed to Minnie, and they've been dating for like 104 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's friends with that whole stable of characters, and Goofy is a widower. He's a widower, which is also like, it reminds me of like, it's dark for what this is. It reminds me of like Chucky Finster's dad in Rugrats was a widower, which is really dark considering that Chucky's like 2 years old, like 1 year old. So you're like, oh, this just freshly happened before the show started or something. But same thing. I think that it's really sophisticated for what that is. I think that it could have been a much jokier movie, but the director, everybody that worked on the film, they decided to take it as an opportunity to be like, let's give Goofy some depth. Let's give Goofy some depth, some emotional something so that we can connect to him. And it's not just about him being Goofy, which is hilarious to see him set up a TV set or to see him try to exercise. Like, all those cartoons are great, but to see him try to be a father and kind of not be able to connect with his son. I'm a sucker for any father-son story in anything. Any movie, anything like I can cry easy. It's great. I cry when the Terminator goes in the lava, because that's barely a father-son story, but like it gets me every time. So yeah, I love that. I related to Max as a kid. I relate more to Goofy when I get older. I think it's awesome, and the music I think is really good for, again, not a regular Disney movie. Like, they didn't have like their Disney people working on these songs. They had other people working on them. A lot of it was animated in France with their studios in France. Pre-production was done here in the U.S. in like Burbank and L.A. and stuff, but it was animated in France, parts of it in Australia. So it's not an official Disney thing, but I think it's the best one out of all the non-official stuff.
Can I just say that as someone who also has a favorite movie, that I don't know fucking anything about my favorite movie, and that was a lot of insight.
So, we'll talk more about credits and we'll come back to it, but I want to go straight to something we usually do a little bit later, which is predictions for the movie. Because you're speaking from the point of view of somebody who's very confident, very passionate about what you know and expect from this movie.
Sure.
Which makes me wonder, how long ago was the last time you've seen it? And are we going to see the same enthusiasm after we watch this? Like, has enough time passed? Are you going to be disappointed in this viewing?
No, guys, I've done this test to myself already, like, before. Okay. It's maybe been like, within a year, maybe between a year and 2 years that I've seen this.
Oh, so you've seen it much more recently than we typically do.
Sure, yeah.
So everybody else in the room, there's more space in
lot of space. But here's the thing:
like 15 years of space.
Yeah.
I've watched this with people that have never seen it, or they have been 15 years of space. And the thing I've been disappointed with is that, like, I understand that I may come out of this and I'll probably like this movie better than any of you guys, probably. Like, I get that. I'm ready for that. That's fine because I like specific things about it. I don't think that it's necessarily a indication of the movie's quality. Like I said, I just think that's like, I like Goofy. I like the music in here. I like the father-son relationship. I think that there are personal things for Hector personal. I feel like if you guys come out of this and you're like, it's all right, it may just be because the subject matter is something you're not kind of interested in. Speaking on the nostalgia factor, whatever, like,
you kind of have to put yourself in the mindset of a kid. These movies were made for kids, and so like we can overanalyze it, but like at the same time, it was made for kids. So I think you have to give it, you have to think about it in that mindset.
Prediction. I don't think you have to do that hard with this one.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And I think
DuckTales, we had to kind of give it a, a grain of salt.
The best Disney movies are like that. You don't have to be the kid.
And I think what you guys are responding to is like a heart of the film that kind of resonates with adults and kids alike. It's a thing that you can relate to as a human, and it's one of these rare movies that sometimes, like in the big studio environment, all the bureaucracy kind of forgets a movie, and the artist can kind of take control and really make it their own and give it what they need to give it to make it appeal to everyone.
I think because it wasn't an official Disney thing, it did fly under the radar. Like, I don't remember a whole bunch of merchandising coming from this project. You know what I mean? So I feel like, again, the creatives kind of were like, well, we want to do this with it. And people were like, go ahead. We don't care.
It's funny. Chris Sanders, who directed Lilo and Stitch, mentioned that kind of happened with Lilo and Stitch, where when it
really heartfelt movie.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I think watching it, I watched a few years ago, and I was like, holy crap, I forgot how truly amazing this film was. And he mentioned that the executives kept asking him, like, when are we going to see this film? When are we going to see this film? Oh, it's going great. It's going great. And he like somehow was able to skirt showing it to people.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that's why it turned out so great, because you know, when you let storytellers and artists do what they need to do, they can do it best.
And the other thing that you said, Hector, that I think is so true is like this film, I remember watching it as like, you know, a kid, teenager, and relating to Max. And I think now that I'm older, I'm probably going to relate more to Goofy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's great about this movie is that both you can, you know, whether you're older or younger, you have a character to relate to. And then on top of that, like you said, I remember distinctly that a lot of the scenes are just way more cinematic than you would usually see from a Disney movie. And
I just remembered a scene in this film, and I almost choked up right now. Like, in my eyes, I'm almost watering, because I'm like, oh, I just remember this one thing that happens that this one character does. It's great, but very cinematic. Very cinematic.
Yeah. I remember a lot of... when you first brought up this movie, when we initially had this conversation after we shot the Let's Drink, you know, I remember it having a lot of distinctual impact on me as well as a kid. And I haven't seen it since I was a kid either. My prediction is that I'm still going to enjoy this film because I remember loving it as a kid and watched it multiple times. And I can still, to this day, remember clearly several scenes. Like, I can remember the scene when they're in the car driving with the mixtape. I remember the scene with the guy in the possum outfit. Hilarious. Like, I just remember so many
you're
scenes.
Describing How I Met Your Mother.
It's an interesting movie. It is so unlike, I think, any other Disney film I've ever seen.
I feel like literally the only thing I can remember about this movie, and it's only because we're looking at this obviously direct-to-DVD
menu,
menu art, is that this dude on the left likes cheese whiz.
Oh, he absolutely does. And he's voiced by Pauly Shore. And this is the best Pauly Shore film of all time.
Oh boy. Yeah. And are they like on King Kai's planet, by the way? It's like this tiniest little...
It's a tiny little planet. Yeah, they're weight training on King Kai's planet. That's right. Yes.
So what is your prediction then, Bret?
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in here. I remember enjoying this as a kid, but the fact that I remember so very little of it is it'll probably be like okay, but it probably won't be like, you know, the stellar level that Hector has.
No way. I'm telling you.
But I mean, I remember it being good, and I feel like so far the things I remember being good haven't been too terrible. So yeah, I'm hoping for like a C.
All right.
Letter grade.
What do you think, Sam? Have you seen it?
Yeah, but it has been a long time. I remember watching this on VHS and like pulling it out of the little case and like having it not clip back together fully. And I remember like the cheese thing, like Bret said. And I remember there's some sort of concert and a river. And I remember the possum thing. And I remember feeling incredibly, incredibly sad at some point during the movie.
Good.
But
Definitely.
I don't remember the context.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
You will be.
So yeah, I'm kind of curious to find out like what the context of those feelings were.
It gets pretty real. This movie gets pretty real.
Yeah, and I think it's a good sign that looking back on this film, I remember the way it made me feel and not just specific things about it. That I think is a good sign that it has a good sort of emotional pull.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We've really been setting this up. We're not going to watch like Requiem for a Dream or anything right now, guys. Like we're watching a Goofy movie.
Oh God, please
It's still
not.
a Goofy movie.
That is a Goofy movie. So, you know, I'm the guy who has not seen this, and before Hector was in the room, I did not have high hopes at this at all.
He said all sorts of nasty things about Hector.
All
He
sorts
was
of mean and
like,
nasty
fuck that guy.
But yeah, this
Used
is
to
not
that.
something that seems like would be very good that I would enjoy. I'm encouraged by Hector's enthusiasm.
Cool.
There's a very, very special place in my heart for the things that that one person loves passionately that other people don't.
You know what I did just a couple days ago? I don't know why I decided to do this. I put together a list of 100 movies that I don't think are the best movies, but 100 movies that make up who Hector is as a human being.
Oh,
if you watch them,
interesting.
you'll understand me as a person, as a man, as a young boy. Like, you'll get me. Yeah. And this was one of the first ones I threw down.
That's actually a fantastic
The 100
Yeah.
movies that, again, you don't think are the best, but you're like, they shaped me as a human being.
I like that.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
As you're talking, I was thinking of Eddie and the Cruisers, which is a very important movie for me that if you even know it exists, you are completely blasé about it. Like, nobody gives a shit about Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yeah.
But I could say everything that you just said about Goofy Movie, about Eddie and the Cruisers. It hits me on just this real deep level.
We'll have to watch Eddie and the Cruisers next.
Yeah.
For me,
Let's
it's
tear apart Nick's childhood.
Well, let's tear apart Hector's childhood first.
Yes. What
I
was
was
yours?
say for me, it'd probably be Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Great, again,
yeah.
not even the best Mel Brooks, but I get it because that's the same era. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that movie.
They're men in tights. Tight tights.
Manly
Manly
Men.
Men.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
Tights.
Bryce, what do you think?
So even though I haven't seen this movie before, as a kid, I definitely I loved the TV show, and Yakko, Wacko, and Dot were just some of my favorite characters. This was one of my favorite Warner Brothers shows, so I'm curious to see if the movie lives up to the
No, you're
show.
thinking of Tiny Toons.
No, it's definitely a Goofy movie.
I think you're thinking of the wrong thing.
Well, we'll watch the movie. We'll see.
Okay. Okay.
I think Bryce is right.
Hope
here.
you like it.
The Price is Right.
So, Goofy Movie, of course, is from April of 1995. Directed by Kevin Lima,
Yes.
who did a handful of other Disney movies, including my personal favorite, Tarzan.
Tarzan, great
which
film.
almost falls into that category we were talking about a moment ago. Like, not a lot of people
Not
are
the
thrilled
best
about Tarzan.
Disney, but if it's your favorite,
Yeah.
great.
I mean, how brilliant is it to have Phil Collins as basically the narrator
I want to know.
of the story?
Can
And
you
it's,
show me?
so that does give me a lot of optimism.
I want to know about these strangers like me. It's great.
Yeah.
On the subject of Tarzan, kind of a cool fact, more on like the subject of films having heart. Apparently after that movie was released, the director and producer kept getting tons of letters in from parents talking about like, I have an adopted kid and I didn't know how to like explain to them like how they fit in my family.
Oh, that's beautiful. You're gonna make me
And-
cry.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so they like this movie helped our family become more of a family and like explain like even though you weren't my biological kid, you are my kid and I love you and like I will always
so
be there
cool.
for you.
That's so
So
great.
a cool little fact about that film.
Again, the seeds of that were planted here in a Goofy movie.
There you have it. Yeah.
I don't think it was Kevin Lima. It might have been like an assistant director, somebody who worked on this and also on Frozen. And there's this headcanon that guy has that the
Which he shoots people with. And I'm just kidding.
like Tarzan's parents who die in the beginning of Tarzan
Oh, that's right.
are the parents of the girl in Frozen. I haven't seen Frozen, but apparently the parents leave on a ship and never come back.
They die.
I think that's the case, but I think it's with The Little Mermaid. There's a sunken ship in Little Mermaid that came out in '89 that people theorize was the ship that was lost to sea in Frozen. And then there's like a scene where in Aladdin they fly over like it looks like Greece. They're like, well, Hercules is down there. Like people have made the connection they're all connected for all the Disney movies. Yeah.
They are if
yeah.
you play Kingdom Hearts.
That's true.
So,
You just need a Keyblade and then you can access all of the realms.
Definitely.
So just to put just a little bit of context, I like to think of the time and place. This was just 1 year after Lion King.
Really? Wow.
The very next month was Pocahontas, and the following November was the first Toy Story. So this is the time in which we're living when this movie came out.
It's clear to see why it got overshadowed by much superior like animated, like it's again. I always talk about the movie Speed Racer from the Wachowskis, which came out in 2008. Came out the week after. Why are you laughing? Why does that make you laugh?
Speed Racer is great.
It's great. Are you joking?
No, I'm
it's
serious.
super weird. It's the trippiest. But it's great.
I kind of love it.
Yeah.
I kind of don't.
I know.
Yeah.
But it came out a week after Iron Man 1 in 2008.
That monologue
nobody saw
scene that was in Speed Racer.
That's not what racing is. This is real racing.
And, and it goes on
crazy.
for like 5 minutes, and like everyone we were with was bored to tears. I'm like, I get this.
Yeah, it's great.
How great was John Goodman?
He was great.
And,
more like Nanja.
Why am I forgetting his name? The
Emil
guy who played
Hirsch?
Speed. Yeah,
Emil Hirsch was great. Matthew Fox, Susan Sarandon. It's a great cast. We could do a whole thing on Speed Racer, but it's
I've never seen it.
visually
so
stunning.
We
have it on DVD.
It's a weird.
Yeah.
They make weird choices.
It looked fucking weird. I'm
But
gonna say
it's
the trailer
visually
made it
beautiful.
look
Yeah, there's
weird.
no defending the weirdness.
Well,
It's a weird
I disagree.
movie.
I think you can defend it because somebody asked the Wachowski said that when you watch that movie, every single thing is in focus. And that's why it looks so green screen and fake, because it's so green screen and fake on purpose. But everything is in focus. Like when Speed Racer is up in the foreground, the mountains, the snow-capped mountains in the very background, they're still in focus. And the reason the Wachowskis did that is because they're like, well, when you watch the cartoon and he's driving, the mountains in the background are the same focus because they took the literal translation of a cartoon and tried to put it in real in live action.
I would argue that just because they have a justification doesn't mean it was the best artistic
it's the
decision.
best artistic decision.
film school memories of the let's watch Citizen Kane where they did the same thing, and it's not as crazy as Wachowski.
Yeah, Wachowskis are nuts, but
I think it was a lot to do with the color palette as well. That was
the color
a
is what I
tense
remember as just
color palette.
fucking nuts.
yeah, they're like
It's like
barf.
neon everything, right?
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
somebody was just like somebody tripped and hit the saturation bar up, and like no one caught it. And
It's the same color palette as Cars 2.
Yeah.
And I love Cars 2
Yeah.
just for the visuals.
You've actually seen
Hector's
it.
shaking his head like.
Hector and I agree. Cars is the worst.
they're bad. They're
I
bad.
wasn't going to get off on this
can't.
tangent, but
But here we are.
for an entire movie, I'm
one's
kind
okay.
of barely on board with the idea of anthropomorphic cars.
Sure.
Until the second movie, in which Mater mistakes pistachio ice cream for wasabi. And I cannot buy a culture that can make pistachio ice cream and wasabi without thumbs. Like, that was the point where I
I
could
can't
not
believe that's
hold on
the thing
anymore.
that ruined
Yeah.
I know,
it.
I know that's ridiculous.
That's the
but you're
thing.
making wasabi and your hands are tires. I cannot go with you on this trip anymore.
Hashtag your hands are tires.
But visually stunning Cars 2.
Yeah.
And I could watch, like, give me a reel of everything Michael Caine has done and I'll love it.
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
Caine's in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the spy car.
He's basically
Oh,
James
well, that
Bond.
makes sense.
Yeah. He's great.
But we're
Oh,
not
anyway.
here to talk about Cars. We're here to talk about a different Disney movie.
You have to like a Goofy movie now if you like Cars too. There's
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
it
will
has to be
see.
good.
And
Yeah.
also, he likes Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie.
Movie.
I haven't seen it yet. I can't get on that yet, but
if
That's
you
fine. That's
decide to
fine.
watch it,
Sure.
listen to our episode in
okay.
which we talk.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll do.
Listen before.
Yeah.
So if you-
Maybe one person, Hector would be the only person to actually follow the format of the show. Like listen and then watch and listen again.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we're now going to watch a Goofy movie. If you have the opportunity, I suggest you do it. You can buy or rent Goofy Movie on Amazon. Or if you just drive over to your parents' house and go into the VHS
their
cabinet,
VHS.
not in the front, in the third tier, you got to pull a couple VHSs out. It's in there.
It's
Take my
behind
word
the-
for
Behind
it.
Lion King.
Behind the Aristocats,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
but before the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Crane is a Goofy movie.
It's in a little paper case, but the one next to it is a plastic clamshell that's falling apart.
No, Goofy
No,
movie
it
was
was
a plastic case.
clamshell.
It's the one that's
Yes.
plastic
Yeah, it was
clamshell.
a
Oh, yes.
clamshell.
That's one.
I noticed it's also on Google Play, by the way.
Or Google Play.
Be sure to grab a VHS player, which we used to call VCRs, on your way out as well.
I
Otherwise, you're
have
not
one
going
of
to be able.
those. Fun fact.
Wow.
So
Still
get one
have it.
from Ash and
Yep.
check out
We're gonna
Goofy
get like
Movie.
50 tweets
I'll
like, "What
rent
the
it out
fuck's a
to you."
VCR?
Yeah.
Who the hell is this Hector guy?"
So check it out. We're going to watch the movie, and we'll be right back to tell you whether it's still any good.
It's good. Gonna move to the mall, gonna live at the pool, gonna talk to Roxanne and not feel like a fool. 'Cause after today, after today she'll be mine. After today, if I don't choke, I'll be fine.
So we just watched the Goofy movie. Did you just watch the Goofy movie? So I think Hector kind of liked it.
Little.
I was just singing just now. That's how much I like this movie. Yeah, man, it's fucking great. It's a great movie. I like it a lot.
So I'd like to open this conversation with, so they clearly established that there's a mouse and a duck best friend in the world.
Oh, no.
But throughout the rest of the movie, we only see the dogs.
Sure.
Were they going to an all-dog school, or is this like a deeper societal segregation issue?
Well, I will not even debate, but clearly the character played by Pauly Shore is a weasel.
That's great.
I don't know.
That's really funny. To answer your question completely seriously, in a professorial way, I believe that in the world of Disney, that includes the characters Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Pluto, etc., that the majority of beings are dog creatures. I think those are like the average people. I think their substitute for like a person is a dog, I believe.
You mean like white people, and everybody else is just different?
Correct. Like, yes, exactly. According to movies, television, whatever else.
That puts a really weird spin on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
That's right. Yeah, so in this film, Goofy and Max are white. Even though their skin is very black, they're not black dudes. They're white dudes because they are the average and all of the extras and everything. Yes, just like every other movie in the world. So Mickey and Donald are like an Asian guy and an Inuit. They're very like left of center people.
See, but this,
Which is which? Wait, which is which? Which is which?
I think it's pretty obvious which is which.
But this goes down, like, you think you've stumbled across something interesting with depth, but this goes way deeper when Goofy is talking about Walt Disney. Mm-hmm. And then my whole brain just melted.
Yeah.
Like, who is he picturing when he mentions Walt Disney?
And on his keys, he has like the Disney logo. And it's like, wait, what?
Maybe like, you know how like whenever us in the human world talk about like God?
Oh,
Maybe
is
maybe that's who Walt Disney.
Yeah,
maybe.
they are.
Or like
they
Jesus.
are the people running Rick's car battery.
Or is there some like weird dog person in a suit named Walt Disney who
Like a
draws
dog
grotesque
Disney? Yeah.
cartoons
Of people?
Humans, anthropomorphized people.
Yeah. Cute little human characters. Maybe. He also has the D logo, which you noticed, Ash, on his keychain. Goofy has that, which is the Disney logo, the Disney D. So you're like, why is he a fan of that brand? What is that brand? What is that in this world? I don't know.
It's Christianity.
It's Christianity. That's right. He's a very religious man.
Well, they're the ones keeping the rest of the creatures separated.
Oh.
I'm just so sad at that.
Am I to believe that there's a world in which Los Angeles exists and also Duckburg?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You haven't been to Duckburg?
I'm okay with that because I'm a fan of comic books, and in the comic book world, in the world of DC Comics, there is both a Metropolis and a Gotham City and still a New York City.
New York exists in DC?
New York exists in DC Comics. A lot of the times Wonder Woman was based out of there. So even though there's a Statue of Liberty in Gotham, that instead of being the normal Statue of Liberty that we know, there's the words Gotham on the top of her hat. There's still also like a New York City in that world. So I'm used to that kind of inconsistency.
I'm thrilled when I found out that there is an official map of Gotham City.
Yes.
That is official for the comic books, the games, the movies. There is an actual geography to the city.
And I believe there's also one for Duckburg as well.
Is there?
No, so we should
I'm
get
sure
on
it
that.
has much less detail.
Yeah, somebody
It's
should
like
make
a
that.
big money bin over here.
Yeah, Scrooge lives here, and
we
the
saw
rest is garbage.
a great map in this film multiple times. From what I can gather, I think that Goofy and Max and Roxanne and everybody live in like a town that's like in, I want to say like, it looked like southern Ohio. And then they just kind of go from there to like Los Angeles. Like it's in that part of the country, right?
Or
and
like
then,
Indiana.
Indiana. Somewhere, yeah. I bet it's Indiana. And then
the state where Duckburg exists is an amalgam of, I wish I could remember, but it's an amalgam of
state?
two different state.
Oh.
It's like, it's Calisota.
Calisota. That's great.
Yeah.
Which is, we saw in the Goofy movie map, it's sandwiched between California and Nevada. It's right in there. It's Calisoda, right in there. Is there a coastal? You know what else is fun to try to figure out? Where's Springfield? What state is Springfield in? From The Simpsons.
Didn't they figure that out?
Well, I think Matt Groening just revealed is like it's Oregon. It's where I grew up in Oregon. There's yeah. So he's like, if there's a Springfield in Oregon, that's the Springfield. Yeah,
interesting.
Because it was coastal, but it's also like has everything. There's seasons, so people were like, well, Springfield can't be in Southern California or southern, southwestern United States because there's seasons. So anyway, yeah.
So we should probably go around and get some reactions. Sam, I'm gonna look at you because I was enjoying, and I think I've seen this with you before, where you are remembering the movie as the movie unfolds.
That was fun.
Your memory is coming back like a half a second before the thing comes on screen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I remember like the first sad part. I was like, oh, no, okay. It's going to get worse. I remember this isn't the sad part. And then like, I think as he was starting to tell the lie to Roxanne about the concert, I was like, oh my God, he goes to the concert at the end. I forgot about that. Like,
I'm glad you didn't say that out loud when you...
I didn't because I didn't, I didn't remember if you guys remembered. And then they're like about ready to go over the waterfall. And I was like, the perfect catch! So, yeah, it was good times. I remember.
You liked it.
Yeah, it was really fun. There was a lot more clever filmmaking than I expected and remembered. Like, particularly the whole map part was really clever with, like, that light and then the way, like, the pencil swirled out.
The map in their Pulp Fiction, like, what's in the suitcase lighting.
Yeah.
I'm used to animation shortcuts in movies like this, and I didn't feel like there were... Except for maybe that one where they pulled into the hotel that just appeared.
Which I did not really catch in this movie. There's like a couple things that I caught where like the difference between the characters' eyes kind of changed and like the proportions of objects changed a little bit, but nothing glaring that was distracting.
My favorite example of a glaring, distracting thing for me, and I caught it again this time I watched it, was towards the beginning of the film. There's a set of background characters that just freeze.
Oh, yes.
And they're not animated.
In the hallway.
Not in the hallway.
No, at the end of the...
When PJ jumps on Max's shoulders, he's like, way to go, Max! That was great! And like they're just walking towards the camera. When everyone's walking by Max and they're like, good job, right behind them, two guys just freeze.
And they're just like...
As PJ and Max keep moving.
The whole time.
Yeah, because
I did not catch that.
I don't think that the animation finished there, and they thought we might as well just freeze them because they're just going to disappear if not. And it kind of makes it look like there's still a crowd behind them when it's just two guys that are frozen.
Yeah. Or when he runs out of the crowd and we're seeing the bird's eye view and they just disappear. People just disappear to make a pass.
You just see an animator's eraser just like erasing. Yeah.
That's funny.
So many appropriate in a goofy movie.
Yeah.
So many existential questions, like, when you're out of the view of the goofs, like, does the rest of their world cease to exist? Like, is it all a dream?
You say that of a movie.
Yeah.
I'm more struck by the why don't you take your gloves off when you go in the hot tub? Like that kind of bothers me.
Because their gloves are their hands.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you saw how hideous their feet were when they took off their shoes.
Really
I don't want to see the hands. No. They are white, puffy hands, and I like that. Another thing I really liked, two things.
Like grizzled.
Oh my God. Please don't. I don't want to know. Anyway, I really liked the kind of funny, like Looney Tunes-esque musical cues that were in here, particularly in the beginning. I thought that was really entertaining, and it kept it light.
When Goofy's pissed at Max, and Max is trying to like make him feel better, and Goofy just keeps slumping down in that expression. There's a musical cue on a piano that's just like hum. Hey, want to play a game? Hum. Maybe let's do like 20 questions. Hum. Like there's just that little cue as he gets more slumped and more slumped. So that's great.
Yeah, it's really rewarding to see something made in 1995 that absolutely fits with the characters that were introduced in 30-something?
That's true. And it's still a 90s movie, but you took these, to me it's very nice, but you took these classic characters from like the 30s, and it still fits.
It's absolutely true to those characters.
Yep.
And the acting was so good.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Go tell us what you think, Bret.
Honestly, I wasn't expecting too much out of this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was really good. You know, me and Sam are from the animators community, and we watch a lot of movies, and we hate a lot of movies.
You guys hate like all of the animation movies. Usually, you're just particularly picky with those.
Yeah, and like I gotta say, Hector, this was pretty great.
I know.
You don't have to tell me.
Listen, I loved it as a kid, but I wouldn't be championing this as much as I do as an adult if it wasn't stellar. I tried to watch a few weeks ago Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar, direct-to-video sequel to Aladdin. Aladdin's is my favorite Disney movie of all time. And I remember being as a kid, be like, Aladdin 2 is about just as good. Not as good, but about as good, right? Jafar comes back, and it's the same, and it's unwatchable because it's television animation, very limited budget. Like the script is bad, all that stuff, all the stuff that makes bad animation bad. And I barely got through it, and I'm like, I don't even want to get to King of Thieves. This is going to be the worst. So those are terrible, and there's a reason I don't have those and constantly watch Aladdin 2: Return of Jafar, even though I love Aladdin.
You know what movie is truly awful? And I'm sure 1,000 times worse than that is The Princess and the Goblins.
Barely remember that.
I don't think I've even heard of it.
I remember that.
I don't know if I saw that.
Who's that but from? Don Bluth Studios?
No, it's a studio in England.
Oh.
And
See, there's your problem right there.
holy shit, is it
Brits.
bad?
You can't trust those Brits drawing anything. It's bad.
They're like ducks. They're like, ooh, you don't want to.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I tried to watch it like in the background as I did something in college, and I was like, I have to turn this off.
No.
They like sing a song, and it's like out of tune and just horrible.
Weird.
Really,
But yeah, there's a lot of like these animated, like, we watch Disney movies and we watch the Pixar and DreamWorks stuff, and we've always got these like really, sometimes they're like generally bad, or we've got like really specific criticisms of a good movie, and like one of my biggest gripes usually is that they really try and cater jokes to children in kids movies. Yeah. And it just like some of them are just like, oh god, that's so not funny to an adult. And this movie like completely avoided that. Like the jokes played no matter what age you are. Like it was it was very pleasant to see a film where they weren't just like pandering, or what they thought was pandering to children, and instead made just a genuinely funny, good movie.
Yeah, totally.
So it's
Yeah.
great.
What do you think, Ash?
I think it 100% lived up to my memory, and I 100% still enjoyed this film. I love how, as far as like screenwriting goes, like if you really want to talk about it, this movie is dialed in and tight. Everything is set up in the beginning.
Yes.
Everything is like perfectly set up. Everything is paid off, and it all comes full circle in this beautiful way. And, it's like, as unrealistic as it is for Max to save his father with the perfect cast,
it's set up.
He had to, and it is set up, and it is perfect. And because it's an animated film, we can accept that.
What's funny is that it's a really grounded father-son movie, but it's still set in the world of Goofy.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like you're saying earlier, it's true to those characters. Of course, zombies exist in this world. Of course, Bigfoot exists in this world. And of course, like impossible physics exists in this world. He blows up, doesn't die, comes crashing into the little roof of the porch of the house at the end because he's Goofy, and that's what he does. And he has to do the Goofy yell, and it's Goofy. But on top of all of that, or throughout all that, is a grounded father-son drama.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the fact that like through their road trip, they killed like 4 to 5 people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a body count in this movie.
Yep.
And not including the guy who was tied up in the trunk of a car.
Oh yeah.
That was a little weird.
That was dumb.
Yeah, that was like a mafia hit sort of thing going on.
Goofy and Max didn't have anything to do with that, but
Well,
still
they
weird.
didn't stop it.
they may have seen it and didn't say anything.
Yeah, they if you don't say anything, you're an accessory.
Exactly.
Hey, son, that guy's about to be killed.
If you see something, say something.
Exactly.
Not the Goofy motto.
So to take it out of the child friendly realm, because if I have to think of a criticism, was the message of this film it's okay to lie to your parents if you're trying to get laid?
I disagree. No, I disagree because in the end, it almost felt like that was going to be the message. But in the end, he came clean to everybody.
He came clean, but like, you know, like halfway through, he was like, "Sorry, Dad. Like, you know, I was this girl," and he's like, "Oh," and like totally on board after that because it's like, "Oh, get it." Yeah, let's get you laid, son. And like,
absolutely. When I was a kid, I thought that's what the lesson was. I thought the lesson was if you lie, but you get away with it, you get away with it, and it's okay. But I think that watching it in my recent years, adult years, the lesson is that I don't think that Goofy would have helped Max if he didn't. I mean, he wouldn't have gone along with it if they didn't crash into a river and just kept driving to L.A. You know, like, I don't know what would have happened. But the point is that once they're in a situation where Max, after they have a heartfelt song about
reach catharsis.
Yes, exactly. Max actually just comes clean and tells him the whole thing. And it's Goofy, the one that says, well, we got to get you to L.A. He's like, no, Dad, we don't have to do that. Like, that's impossible. That's fine. He's like, no, we're going to get you to L.A. Not to get laid, but because you're in love. My little Maxie's in love. He's growing up. I miss it. Oh, so I think the lesson is if you're upfront with your parents, imagine if in the beginning of the movie, he was like, Dad, there's a party next week.
Well, he does, actually.
But tried harder to be like, I love this girl. Like, let me... I got, like, Dad, you're right. I got in trouble.
It's not about the party. It's about being in love.
Right.
Yeah. It suffers from that, like, you people just need to have a conversation. Like, that bugs me about storytelling sometimes.
And I think
it's all a big misunderstanding.
I think that's the thing that always really resonated with me with this movie is as a teenager, you can really relate to this movie because it's like, no, Mom and Dad, this and this. And your mom and dad usually go, oh, whatever. And you don't really know any better.
Sure, you don't know any better. And in this case, Goofy is fucking dumb because he's Goofy. So there's part of the thing of like Max maybe trying to talk to him, but he's like, oh, go. So you're like, well, it's Goofy. He's an idiot. He's not actually, not only is he not listening to his son, but he really doesn't get it. He's a sweet guy, but he doesn't get it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Max is very much like a teenager, like to the max. He's so angsty and so just like, oh,
to the max.
To the max.
Plus, you know, Goofy's a single dad. He understands when you need to hit that. So.
And he does hit it in the direct-to-video sequel, An Extremely Goofy Movie, where Goofy starts to date the school librarian, Sylvia.
There you go.
And finally moves on from his passed away ex-wife. So not a good film, though. Not a good movie.
That moment where it's, you know, oh, we have to get you to L.A. And he's like, oh, that's not possible.
Yeah.
I think of like Goofy, but I also think of Senior Chang from Community. And I feel like Goofy could just say, have you met me?
Yeah.
This is not impossible.
So, Nick, what did you think?
So let me come right out of the gate saying, like, I really, really liked it.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you, Hector.
Nick hates everything.
Yeah, I do want to say some things that will come off as criticism, but it's
fine.
I right out of the gate have to say I really liked it. As somebody who in recent years was struck by the realization that I'm turning into my father, and soon after that being
opening nightmare sequence, right?
Yeah. You know, and it's an interesting point where you start becoming your father, and a more interesting point when you're okay with it. You know, that's not a bad dude to turn into, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of this journey that he has there.
Yeah. Sorry not to cut you off, but on that topic, I did write a little note, like, this movie is a love story, but not in the way that you'd expect. It's not between Max and the girl. They have that right away. It's a love story between Max and his father.
That's beautiful.
Which is really sweet.
That's beautiful. It is.
Like Master and Commander is absolutely a love story between a captain and the doctor. You know, you're looking, I guess you haven't seen Master and Commander. But you can't have a love story and have the structure of a love story without it being the
romantic love.
Yeah. Castaway between a man and a volleyball. It's right there. And it's beautiful.
Some people interpret that as a joke.
Yeah.
That is not a joke.
It's kind of not.
Yeah. So, you know, one issue that I have with this is similar to an issue that I brought up when we were talking about Mystery Men, is that the female character is the prize.
Yeah.
And that hurts. And this movie is so important because it teaches young people how the world is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I don't like that element of it.
Agreed.
Well, and she's like super shallow, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I wouldn't call her shallow. I would say that it is not a fleshed out character.
Exactly. Sure. I would agree with Nick. She isn't necessarily shallow. It's just the only thing you know about her is that she likes the singer and Max.
I can describe Max's character, you know, without saying his name or like that he's a student. I can describe his character's personality. Goofy, I can describe his character. Pete, I can describe his character. PJ, even their friend Pauly Shore's character, I can describe him.
Even the love interest's friend.
Yes, Stacy. Stacy, you can describe her, and she has like 8 lines, like even less than that, and you can describe her character and her like and how she is in the school and how she socializes and stuff. Can't do that with Roxanne because she's too much the prize. She's just like
Well, she's just a storytelling prop.
Yep.
At this point, and that's why I call her shallow. Is just because like she's just a storytelling prop, and then like the fact that she's like, oh, you're not really gonna be on TV or whatever. There was
I guess
that
I'll date another guy. Like, whoa.
Yeah,
what?
like she's just a storytelling tool at this point. She doesn't have, even look at her outfit, like compared to her friends. Like her friend Stacy like had flair and a character, and Roxanne's just like, I'm just rocking jeans and t-shirt.
She reminds me of Jennifer Love Hewitt's character in Can't Hardly Wait. A movie that has all these other really interesting characters. Seth Green is in it. The main dude. All these characters whose personalities I can describe. Ethan Embry. But like Jennifer Love Hewitt, her only purpose is like she breaks up with the jock at the beginning of the movie, and over the course of this party, every dude hits on her, and all she knows is to like, well, who am I going to be in a relationship with next? And even at the end, when she discovers it's Ethan Embry, and he's like, well, I'm going off to college. She's like, it's all right. Maybe I just won't date for a while. It's like, how about just be a human for a while? You don't have to jump right into dating. Yeah. What, is that the only thing you do? Do something else.
Yeah, there is a huge element to that resonates me from that point of view of being the kid in high school who like, oh, this could be that moment and everything hangs on that thread. So I do like that story because it kind of resonates with me. I just
listen. My favorite line in the movie is "She looked right through me, and who could blame her?" Because that was my adolescence of like not being very popular with girls and not knowing how to talk to them, all that stuff. But the movie, the flaw is that it is of the perspective of a young teenage boy.
Yeah, and I think though, without turning it into an episode of tropes versus women,
because they're very good, and we can't do that well.
The thing is that they established like from second one that she wasn't actually the prize, and that nothing that Max did throughout the movie affected whether or not she liked him.
Right, that's true.
Except for that moment. There is one moment where I called it out and I was like, wow, okay, that's super shallow, There's one moment where it does.
But there's like that, that empathetic, like, from her perspective, is it like, oh, is Max, like, showing up to cancel the date because he doesn't like me? Like, you never know what her motivations were for saying that.
And they're young.
Neither of them know what to say.
Right.
And they're shy. Like, she had to be pushed by her friend to talk to him. And you the acting is kind of subtle, but you do kind of get the impression she's like, oh man, this guy's trying to bail on me. How do I act tough to show that it's not hurting me?
Almost like he's canceling the date.
You could do that.
I guess I'm not surprised.
She probably thinks he's cooler than her because when he had that little moment, he's like, I'll call you later. And she like giggled and bumped into a wall, and she's like, okay, and he just showed off in front of the whole school.
Also,
so you could do that.
Maybe there's like a whole other movie told from her point of view, like the same 2 weeks from her point of view that might be really fascinating.
Yeah.
And maybe that makes it okay. Like if you're telling a story from a certain person's point of view, okay.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I really liked about it is because he didn't win her. It was he did this thing and he fucked up, and at the end of it, like it didn't really change where she was at.
Right.
Yeah.
And he came clean to her.
Yeah, that was the key to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have
So good.
worked.
You can still show the movie to your kids. It's good. There's good life lessons in there.
It was like a genuine teen romance, and like with a ridiculous thing that happened over 2 weeks, but the rest of it's like a normal thing.
Yeah.
So the other problem I had with it was this. It's like my tension and nervousness level just like rises anytime I'm watching a movie or TV show where they're driving in a car and they look to their side and they're talking to the person in the passenger seat. Every second that they don't turn back and look at the road, this like you could see a thermometer in my head going up and up, and I'm like, goofy. Hey, Dad. Goofy.
Dad.
Like he's like 3 minutes straight looking straight to his right side.
So
when he's driving on a crowded interstate.
Yeah, question though. How they're driving on a crowded interstate, like fucking in
Indiana.
Calisota?
Calisota.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever been driving on an interstate in like an empty state?
You can just swerve
Because we did that
left
last
and right.
winter, and you could fucking just close your eyes, and there's no one out there.
Maybe, but man, it takes me right out of a movie.
Well, then
I'm
how
like,
did you feel in that moment when
Yeah.
he does swerve out of the way of the semi?
like the kid has to grab the wheel at a certain point. It's like, dude.
Yeah, at least they addressed
and they
it.
still killed one dude. You know, they went through that scaffolding, and one guy died in that moment.
Two guys up on that thing.
There were two people.
It was two guys.
two?
There's two guys up on that thing. The third death was help me remember,
The
guys.
lighting guy that they threw.
No, that was
That was the
That was
fourth
the last
death.
one.
Oh.
The third death was
The piano fell on a guy. The mime.
Goofy.
Yeah,
Goofy
yeah.
imaginarily cut the line and murdered a guy in
Which
New Orleans.
Bret pointed out, Roger Rabbit rules. That's how you kill a cartoon.
Cartoon. That's right.
That dude was dead.
That or being dipped in a vat of acid or whatever.
Yeah.
Or,
Wait, or is that Roger Rabbit rules? Because they killed a
Yeah.
human with the falling cartoon piano.
No,
Was
but
that Eddie Valiant's? No, it was Eddie
partner.
Valiant's partner.
Yeah.
Wasn't he a tune?
Was he a tune? Oh man!
God.
Now we got to
need to-
rewatch that. 'cause
I don't
that's
think so.
Kind of need to
I
rewatch
don't
Who
think
Framed
so.
Roger
Yeah.
Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yep. Goofy's in that, but not Max because he didn't have a son in 1930 whatever.
Yeah.
You said one thing, Nick, that I kind of wanted to harp on too, where you said like that for you it resonates as like the teenage experience.
Yeah.
And that moment after he's done, he gets out of detention and everything. And that moment where everybody's like, Max, and he's like riding on this high. And then you see him like skateboard and he's doing these cool tricks
He's
and he's
not
like doing all these
clumsy,
stuff.
yeah.
And like, to me, it was almost like a metaphor. Like he's not really doing those things. That's just like showing us the high of how he feels. And I thought that like really perfectly executed that feeling, like that high. I'm sure we've all like experienced that sort of high before where like
I
you're
like that point of view because when I watched it, it was more of a like the power to be rad was inside you all along.
See, to me, it was just like a metaphor for the way he was feeling inside.
the real world. He's just walking down the street to his house, but in his mind,
head.
he's like, I just skateboarded inside a concrete pipe and did a flip.
Yeah, I mean,
Literally the world's best skater.
Maybe that's what's happening inside of Goofy's head through his
Maybe.
entire life.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And I love that moment too. I forgot about this part, but the moment after Roxanne says yes, he says, everybody mambo. That's what Max does. And you're like,
That's what Goofy does.
But I'm saying,
Right.
but Max celebrates by going, everybody mambo, because that's what Goofy did in the beginning of the movie. And you're like,
Yeah.
you're just like your dad, dude. And he starts mamboing with the secretary. And it's just like, it's.
And as
yeah.
much as I criticize that whole relationship, Max and the girl, like that moment when she says yes,
Yeah.
that's a moment.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It was really cute too because she like you could tell they didn't want to leave each other, but they didn't know what to say to each other.
Yeah.
And the friend's like, let's go before you mess this up. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
It's a fragile moment here.
Dance with it. Groove with
Yeah.
it. Good acting. Good animation and good acting.
Nick, are you surprised? I don't think you thought you were gonna like this film, did you?
Yesterday, no. And Hector started making me feel like, okay, there may be some value to this.
I don't think you guys could have watched a more perfect movie to watch before this, which was the DuckTales film.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that really does is like reminds you like, okay, this is what animation comes from like the TV to video, direct to video type world. This is what the standard is. And I feel like this is really above and beyond.
Absolutely. This is way better than DuckTales, for sure.
So I don't know if you've said a lot, but I don't know if you've directly answered the question, like, how do you feel coming out of it this viewing?
Even better than I ever have. It's so good, you guys. We were talking about, I said, because I remembered it's well acted. And then you mentioned the hot tub scene before the movie started. And I went, that's my favorite scene in the film. Because
good.
even when I was a kid, I remember being like affected by it.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time I saw Goofy and Pete. Remember, I'd been watching Goof Troop for years, and in various other Goofy cartoons. The way they just animate their dads. They're just sitting down in their dads, and they're just like, ugh. And even the little joke, like, oh, I was putting too much dang water in these things. But they're not like zany, like, whoa, we're in a hot tub. They're just
It was
like,
a real moment.
Yeah, and
so
Pete
real.
wasn't fucking like catchphrasy, like on your thumb, and like there was like real interactions.
yeah, he's the wacky neighbor in the show. He's like the villain in the show, Pete. And in this thing, the moment where he's like, I don't believe you. I trust my son. But the way they animate it, where it's like from the perspective, we're seeing Goofy's back as he's getting up, and he like barely turns around, and we see the side of his mouth as he's addressing Pete. And then when Pete says, "Hey, my son respects me," as a kid, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
This is affecting me. Yeah. This isn't how a father-son relationship should be. And he's like, check the map, Goof. And it was, the hot tub scene was brutal.
It's also
so
like
good.
In the show, Goofy rarely stands up to Pete. And that was like a pivotal moment where he stands up to Pete.
That's what it was. For his son, he stood up for us. He's like, listen, you can make fun of me all you want. You can boss me around at work. You know, you can slap me in the head. You can tell me I'm not good at my job. You know, I'm very good at my job. I'm better with kids than you are. But the second you tell me, because the line he goes, "You're just a bad kid, Goof." When he said that, I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, don't do that.
Seriously.
Not to mention he treats his child like a slave. Every scene he's like cleaning and stuff.
I know.
But like there's all the like the actual like hurt feelings and stuff in this movie. But that scene with the hot tub is like that's the gut wrenchingest. Like you're like, I don't believe you, and you're like, but again, it's so bad. Like
it's script writing, like every line is good. Like you were saying earlier, it's a tight script. Again, another classic line. Goofy says to him, he goes, "My son may not be what you think a perfect son should be." Like, what a great, respectful way to say, let me do my own thing. Like, while still acknowledging, like, your son's probably going to be real messed up. This is not good, but he did it in such a respectful way. Just, God, I love that scene so much. And then how Goofy's mad afterwards, the scene where he's mad. And the scene, again, that broke my heart is, the line was, it was like a Forrest Gump moment where he pulls off to the side of the road, because up to this whole movie, you just think Max thinks his dad is embarrassing. And when he tells him, like, "Dad, talk to me," he goes, "Why? I'm probably too stupid to understand anyway." I went, Goofy knows he's stupid. Goofy knows he's stupid, and now he thinks that his son thinks he's stupid. Like, that makes me cry. That's so good. You know?
I love that you say Forrest Gump when Ginny tells him that that's his son, and he says, he can't even get out the words. Like, is he smart?
Is he like
or
me?
Is he like... And I can't watch that scene without crying.
You can imagine that when Max was a baby, maybe going into kindergarten, maybe if Max's mom was still alive, Goofy may have had a similar like scene and moment with Max's mom or with a teacher or something. You know what I mean? Like the development of Max as a baby, maybe Goofy had a similar moment. Like, is he like me, or is he like my wife? Like, it's heartbreaking, right? Meanwhile, Mickey hasn't done shit in 70 years.
Yeah, talking about a shallow character.
You know, and Goofy's over here like making us think about life. It's great.
So I want to give you an opportunity that you could take or leave, and we could cut it out of the podcast because it's your intellectual property.
I'm going to take it.
And here's your opportunity, because we have tens of listeners.
Ooh, they're going to love this.
All 10 of them.
So you were telling us about your idea. So there's this movie, there's a direct-to-video sequel.
Yes.
You've got a perfect idea for a third movie and major theme park attraction based on the third movie.
At Disney is listening. Listen up, because this is perfect.
I've tried, and at this point, I don't think this is ever going to happen because I'm not a writer, and I've reached out to people that work at Disney, and I'm like, can you get me a meeting with an Imagineer because I just want to pitch something? But at this point, I'm giving it away for free because I love it so much. I just want it to be made, and I have an idea for a movie it's the third film in the Goofy trilogy, what I consider a trilogy, that wraps up a lot of story stuff, and it's called A Goofy Wedding. And I want it to be theatrically released, traditionally hand-drawn, hand-animated. And at the same time, while the movie's being released, you might be thinking, well, Hector, who would give a crap? What kids would care about Goofy? Well, first of all, you have the nostalgia crowd, because we're all over here. This is the 20th anniversary of this film. Kids that have grown up with this movie are now having kids themselves. There's that thing. But yeah, you want to make Goofy popular again I want to take an entire section of Disneyland Park, the Country Bear Jamboree part, that whole little like frontier land kind of a section,
including the
Splash Mountain, which I love the ride. I love the ride, but it's based off of Song of the South.
We need to redo it, Disney.
Which Disney is embarrassed to talk about because it's of its time, it's racist. So that's its embarrassment. So renovate that whole thing and turn it into a little section of a Goofy park. Kind of a deal, including a recreation of Lester's Possum Park, which would be great. A Lester walking around, and you hear, "Who's your favorite possum?"
For this whole thing.
Thank you. Right now that you've seen it, and then I would gut Splash Mountain, but keep the ride because it's a great ride, and turn it from Splash Mountain to Goofy's Splash Canyon. So it still has the word splash in it for that name brand recognition. And you do the last thing of the film where they're riding a car, and then there's a waterfall at the end. and that would be Splash Mountain. And at the top of the drop, you see an animatronic Max like doing the perfect catch, and as you go over, you hear. You land, you turn the corner, and you see Goofy when he's hung up by his like shorts, and he says the perfect catch. And then when you land in the thing, you hear bap, ba-da-da, and then it takes you into a gift shop, and you buy a bunch of Powerline shit. Like that would be the ride. The whole ride in the interior leading up to it would be nobody else but you. We stick together. So you would see Bigfoot. You would see parts of a Goofy movie, like animatronic Bigfoot. You'd see Goofy and Max sitting on a car, and then Goofy lifts his foot, and there's a big, robot fish. And you're instead of a log, you're in like a hollowed out car, or like the hood of a car, whatever they make it fit. And that's the ride. So it's that nobody else but you. And then at the end, the music, and then the drop, and then that's how you keep the ride and turn it to Goofy Splash Canyon.
That was a hard sell for me when you're like, we're going to reset Splash Mountain.
Thank you.
But as you describe it, it's like that really could work.
It could work.
All they have to do is replace the animatronics, really.
Yeah, and a lot of them
and
some of them you can even keep because they're like animal critters and stuff. Like some of them you could keep, and that whole ride.
Put some nun hats on them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Throw a zombie in there.
Yeah,
and then I would take I would do like the gift shop would have like Powerline stuff and that little bobblehead that Goofy saw at the beginning. You'd be able to buy that bobblehead with the blue light special, and you could buy a Goofy movie on Blu-ray and get the soundtrack, and it would just be like a small little gift shop. You could that whole little corner would have that. You'd have Powerlines walking around, Goofy's and Max, and the Pauly Shore character, like mascots, those guys walking around, and even characters from the new Goofy Wedding, which I came up with.
Yeah, which I want to hear this story.
The pitch is, the only thing you got to take away from an extremely Goofy movie is that Max is in college. He's a freshman in college. Goofy starts dating, or rather Goofy gets wind of this and misses his son so much he decides to enroll in that same college, and he like gets his college degree because he never got one. So the joke is like, I'm trying to go to college and my dad's here too because my dad's Goofy. How embarrassing. And then Goofy starts dating the librarian, this woman named Sylvia, who she is a little bit fleshed out. She has a personality, unlike Roxanne. There's no mention of Roxanne, which bummed me out. Like Max just dropped her, whatever.
But that's real life.
What do you mean?
that's true.
The girl that is the
Hey, Brett, Sam. Boyfriend and girlfriend since.
But aside from like the girl is the beginning.
No, you're totally right. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're not the norm. That's not the normal thing. Yeah, you guys, it's fantastic. But yeah, totally. And so that's where the second movie left off. Is that Goofy and this woman started to date seriously, and then Max did his own thing. I think graduated. A Goofy Wedding picks up after Max.
Being released from prison.
That's right. He's fallen on hard times. He, being a millennial, because that's the age he'd have to be now, is that he graduates college and can't get a job. It's hard for him to find work because he doesn't have experience because he just graduated from college. So all the people that age would be like, I get it, totally. He's got to move back in with his dad. He's got to move back home, which is something that a lot of young people have been doing. Yeah. And it's very relatable.
Definitely.
And
right now,
so
sure.
I think the premise of each one of these movies is, what if you had to go on a road trip, but your dad was Goofy? And the second one is, what if you tried to go to college, but your dad came with you and he was Goofy? So this one would be, what if you had to move back home after college, but your dad's Goofy? So it'd be like, hijinks ensue. He's trying to do a serious relationship with his girlfriend, Sylvia. So Goofy's trying to be a dad and be there for his son, but he's also like, I'm trying to move on, Max. Like, I'm trying to do my own thing. And then when he gets back into town, he reconnects with Roxanne, who will be a fleshed out character this go around. She will be somebody who she'll be like, oh, remember how silly it was about you being on TV all those years ago? Max and Roxanne start dating. So then the movie, like, time progresses and a couple months go by or whatever. Max is in love. He wants to propose. He wants to pop the question. And I think he tells Goofy, and then when he puts that idea in his head, the night, and it's very similar to like The Office, where Jim Halpert was trying to propose to Pam, and then he had his thunder stolen by Dwight. It's the same deal.
Not Dwight.
No, it was Nardog. It was Andy Bernard.
Yeah.
He proposes to Angela. So Max is out at an event or whatever and tries to propose to Roxanne. Goofy proposes to Sylvia. So Max is like, thanks, Dad. Like, that was my moment. But then eventually proposes, and they're engaged. And so there's 2 weddings being planned. And it's like Father of the Bride. Part 2, which was a wedding.
It's more like the Father of the Bride, where their mom and the daughter are pregnant, right?
Exactly, but instead of being pregnant, it's 2 weddings. Thank you. That's right. Diane Keaton and that other lady. So then the third act of the film is Goofy's wedding. And you don't even really see Max's wedding. That kind of happens later. But Goofy's wedding is setting everything up, moving on from his wife. There's memories of his ex-wife. We see his ex-wife. We see Max as a baby. We see that Max kind of gives Goofy permission to move on and be happy, kind of, growing up, growing apart. Max comes down one day and asks his dad, hey, have you decided who your best man's going to be? Mickey, Donald, who's it going to be? And Goofy says to him, like, well, I want it to be you, Max. And there's this great moment. Max is like taken aback, like, oh, Dad, because Max's best man is going to be PJ, his best friend, not his dad. And his dad's like, well, I wouldn't want anybody up there but you, Max. Like a real nice, just a really good moment. And so Max does that. He's Goofy's best man. Mickey and Donald are like in the audience or whatever. And the whole last third act is just a who's who of like the Disney characters. Donald shows up, Uncle Scrooge, maybe a little bit older. Huey, Dewey, and Louie are grown up. They're Max's age, right? We see Mickey, we see Minnie. And at some point during the ceremony, like Minnie turns to Mickey and she's like, when are you going to propose? And he's like, that kind of joke. Like Maribel, like Goofy's ex-girlfriend is there, the cow lady, and I think she's dating a horse or something now. I forget. But they'd all be there. It'd be this big love letter to Disney. It would let Goofy evolve and kind of mature as a character. And then after that happens, in like the honeymoon phase or something, the resolving action would be like Max and Roxanne have like a smaller wedding somewhere else, like a really nice little moment, and they're very much in love.
At the lake.
Lake Destiny?
Yeah.
Lake Destiny.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And Max even takes Roxanne on the trip, and he's like, listen, we're going to get away this summer, and then they're basically eloping, and it's the trip. That's,
oh my God.
Did we just...
He pulls out the map.
Yes, and he's like,
I've planned everything.
Ooh, this has been passed down from goof to goof to goof, Roxanne, and it's just like...
But
That's
we're
good.
stopping in LA.
Yeah.
Concert.
Oh, and that's the other thing. During Goofy's wedding, the singer is Powerline, because by now he's like a washed up, like he was or they kept in touch or whatever. He just called in a favor. So then it's like there's like a slow like ba 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 ba. That's like the first wedding song, right? It's seeing it eye to eye. That's like the wedding bit. Yeah, that's it. That'd be great. So I'd want a Goofy wedding.
Beautiful.
Yep.
So we got a bonus movie.
We're on board.
In your
Just
head.
do it, Disney. Please,
Dear
for the love of
Disney.
God. If you're going to get any film greenlit to be a hand-drawn animated film,
Wait, how can we work Pauly Shore back into this?
No.
what else is he doing? He'd have to be
good
there.
without Polly.
You could cut to a joke where he wasn't invited to the wedding, but you still get Pauly Shore to do the voice where like he's singing at home. He's like, I didn't get an invitation, bro. Like,
I'll give you one shot, no dialogue.
Yeah.
Wedding cake, cheese whiz.
You're giving him the Jar Jar
That's
moment.
good.
Of
Just puts
episode 3
cheese
of
whiz
just,
on the
just
wedding cake.
FaceTime.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't
great.
say anything.
That's a great bit. Yeah, and just lift the laugh from the first one, ha 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 ha, and like make him say it as he's spraying the cake. And then Pauly Shore sees it in theaters, and he's like, I didn't get paid for that. Come on. I should have gotten.
Or
they
he could
didn't
be
ask
like,
me to come back.
Mazel tov, buddy.
That's perfect. Let's see, bring him back. Come on, you can bring him back. It's
do
fine.
it.
Bring the whole
He
cast
only gets
back.
one line.
Yeah, I've had that idea for a
like
movie
Wesley
since.
Crusher at Riker's wedding.
Yeah.
It's like he didn't even get to say anything.
Yeah, it's like, wait, Wesley, didn't you go off with that space dude?
Yeah, shouldn't you be
Explore
like
the universe.
non-corporeal with the traffic? Like, what are you
Whatever.
doing?
That's
Yeah.
fine, Wesley. Good to see you, Will Wheaton. Good to see you, bud.
I would love to see Will do more Wesley Crusher. Like, yeah, man.
Well, that's my idea. I've had it for a very long time, since I was basically a kid, and I think I had every detail in there. That's it.
Yeah, that's
Goofy wedding.
a gift to us.
Again, I was going to say, if there was any film that could get greenlit as hand-drawn, it would be Goofy.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, well, it's got to be CG. Like, no, do it hand-drawn, and people are going to go see it.
I'd like to think
if Disney
so.
promoted the hell out of it, they'd
It's
go
a
see
hard
it.
sell in today's climate, but I'd like to think so.
It's a sad fallacy in animation.
Yep.
And I know a lot of artists feel the same, that many people feel, 2D's washed up. It's old. People don't want to see that. I feel like it is not true. It's all about story.
More than
And people feel, I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's hard for people to feel like they can get as emotional with 2D. I think because it's so cartoony, but you totally can. And it has worked many times. Goofy movie, Lilo and Stitch, Tarzan, like we were talking about earlier, and Lion King. Like,
Lion
God,
King,
you cry. Like,
Yep. It's
So-
it's all about good acting. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think there's, like you were saying earlier, Hector, there's a generation of people like us who
Thank
would
you.
totally be into that.
Yeah.
So what did you think, Bryce?
I liked it.
All right.
Pretty good. Did you like the bit with Pinky in the Brain that they had that nice little cameo? And
Yeah, it was great.
yeah. It's good.
So I definitely recommend you check out more Hector Navarro. There's lots of Hector Navarro to be enjoyed on the web.
Enjoy the Hector universe.
And you're almost misrepresented in this show because you are the guy to go to on the internet for comic book stuff, you know?
Thank you.
So, you know, we didn't even talk about your expertise there, but, you know, I was telling you before, I love Omnibus. I wish I could watch The Poole, but I'm so out of date on my reading.
Oh.
And you're talking about brand new stuff.
For a lot of the time, yeah.
But if you're up to date and you want to follow along, definitely check out The Poole. I wish I could watch it.
Yeah, it's a live show every Tuesday night. We'll see how much longer it'll be on the channel. But it's super fun. We have comic book guests and writers and artists, and we'll talk about their new stuff, but also like the careers. So like older stuff. We'll have great writers on and talking about their whole careers. And then we sometimes have segments where it's like memory lane, and we talk about just an old great comic book that we tell people to check out. You know, I've turned a lot of people onto stuff.
It's
like a segment.
Okay.
Not an entire. Sorry. Yeah.
Like if I could just watch the memory lane stuff, I'd be totally on board.
Oh man, I'll text you to be like, watch in 5 minutes, and then
from 357.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's on Twitch, right? So it's live.
Yes, it's live.
So you can't.
It's like YouTube, but
Yeah.
live. I literally have to text you to be like, watch right now.
Yeah. Okay.
And then during the segment, I'll be like, Nick, stop watching. We're going to talk about new stuff, and then you can shut it off.
Right on.
That's great.
And you're Twittered up, right?
Yes, yeah. Find me. I'm on Twitter
All backed up with Twitter.
at Hector is funny. Twitter and Instagram, so you can do that.
And also check out Hector's YouTube channel, Superhero News.
Thank you, Ash.
Which is also really great. You guys,
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And you have quite a few subscribers. I noticed you're growing a lot.
We just hit 22,000 subscribers.
Nice. Wow.
Which is crazy. It's because we did a video about Batman and Superman, and apparently a lot of people liked to look up videos about Batman and Superman.
I specifically did that.
Your SEO.
It's a fantastic and bizarre thing about the internet, but people are like, we want to watch you watch a trailer. Like, sure. Great.
It's like the unboxing of movies.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't get it, but I do it.
You want to wrap yourself up in a topic that you're interested in right now. I absolutely understand that.
Just like listeners of this show, the beauty of the internet is that you can find community. You find people talking about what you want to talk about if you don't have that in your life. And that's what this is. That's what the stuff I do is. I've had people tweet at me and they're like, hey man, I live out in like Brazil. I read comic books and like these movies. Nobody around me likes that stuff. I found you and your friends and everything on the internet, and it feels like I'm in a living room just like shooting the shit. So thanks. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, you need that community. Mm-hmm. So thanks for listening to another episode of Let's Rewatch. We put these out. Thanks for listening, you guys. Hope you liked our show. We put this out every 2 weeks. We would love to hear from you on Twitter if you've got suggestions for other movies we should be checking out.
Hey, if you like the music on the show and the other stuff on Laugh Stash, I do that. Bret, that's me. I have a website, breadeagles.com, and a Twitter, bread_eagles. That's the food and the bird. Bread Eagles.
We all know how Hector feels about that.
Hector hates it, I think.
I get it now. It makes sense now.
But yeah, there's like some free music on my website. Check it out. And then the show is a part of the Laugh Stash network of entertainment content stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a part of Laugh Stash TV. We are a YouTube channel and we do nerdy stuff, nerdy comedy stuff. We have several video game parodies. We have a cooking show. Yeah, watch Spider Tank. Watch Nerd Off is actually our newest sort of short sketch that's all about how nerdy girls kick ass. And then we also have a cooking show called The Hunger Games with my friend Lolita. And our drink review show, comedy drink review show, which we had Hector on as well, the Thanksgiving episode. But Bret and I, you can see us in person drunk, so you don't just have to listen to us drunk.
Yeah, it's called Let's Drink.
Yeah.
Where we drink.
We drink a lot. But you can follow Laugh Stash on Twitter at Laugh Stash TV. And then you can also follow the podcast at Let's Rewatch. And be sure to tweet movie suggestions at us.
And if you guys like the show, please go ahead and review us on iTunes. Just like our awesome fans, Nerdy Geek 1206, Jahario. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I hope you're not.
Shut up.
We like him, but we like to see you stumble.
And then
Great radio.
Cole Rulan and Martian Mind and a few other people. You guys are awesome.
There's only 2 more. Attack V and I has 5.
Yep. I was scared to pronounce that one, so. And if you didn't like us, lie. Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks to people who are tweeting at us on Twitter, like James Atwell, David Bernard, and Courtney Maisie, and other people. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Courtney.
Represent.
James Atwell. Jimmy James.
Do it.
All right. Well, that's the show, guys. Next week, we'll be watching Meatballs 2.